Hey now, my name is Nick from Board Game Brawl, and it is time for the 2014 edition of my top 100 games of all time. Today we're counting down from number 100 to 91, and of course we will be including rebuttals from the Board Game Geek Peanut Gallery. So, let's get to it. My number 100 is the newest game on this list, and it is just squeaking in, and that is Pandemic: The Cure from Z-Man Games. This gives me all the feeling of the original Pandemic, of being a team of first responders jet-setting around the world, trying to stop these 4 viral outbreaks before they destroy humanity. But this one is all done with dice, and while that makes it completely random, even more so than the original, it also makes it very, very interesting. Each player gets their own set of custom dice with unique powers that none of the other players have. They're going to use those cooperatively to go around and stop all of these outbreaks. You have the same feeling of Pandemic, of just this increasing mounting pressure as all of these viruses break out, and you still have to deal with them, and you have this cool thing where you can buy these event cards. So even though it has the same theme and the same goal as the original Pandemic, it feels like a different beast, and I like it a lot. That is Pandemic: The Cure from Z-Man Games. However, Jackie the Ripper from Board Game Geek says, I thought it was too abstract and boring. It's just dice on coasters. What do I care? My biggest disappointment from Spiel 14 Essen. Number 99 is Guildhall from AEG. This is a very clever and cool card game that's all about set collection, but in this case you are collecting townsfolk. And the townsfolk that you collect are each going to give you a different special power that escalates depending on how many of them you are able to actually acquire and play at the same time. If you play the Dancer with a lot of different Dancer cards with her of the same color, you're going to be able to draw a lot of cards, which is awesome. If you play the Assassin, you're able to take out someone else's whole row of citizens. There's lots of different special abilities, which is always a cool thing. There's lots of back and forth between different players. It is random, and you can totally mess up someone's game, but they can do the same to you, and it's a race to get to a certain amount of points. Very cool. Really appeals to the card game lover in me. That is Guildhall from AEG. And Thoya says, bleh, uninspired, repetitive, back and forth nonsense until someone finds they are lucky enough to pull off a win. Keep this one far away from me. Number 98 is also very new, and it is Good Cop, Bad Cop from Overworld Games. I love hidden roll deduction games, and this one is very clever in that everyone gets the same hidden roll. You're either a cop or you're a crook. However, the way that you determine this is by 3 cards that are laid down on you that say whether you're either honest or crooked. Whichever one you have the most of, honest or crooked cop cards, determines what you are. It's very easy in this game to look at other people's roll cards and try to figure out what they are, but because you have 3 of them, you may not be sure, and by the time you're able to figure it out, it might be too late. So sometimes you're just going to have to make educated guesses. You have the whole thing with the agent and the kingpin. You're trying to take out the other player's leader, and those override what the other cards are. So you may be 2 crooked cards in the agent and still be a good guy. I love that back and forth. I love the items that you can use. It's just very clever. I love the whole aspect of taking guns out of the center of the table and trying to shoot the other players, but having to do it in a very strategic way. It's light, but there's some strategy there, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. That's Good Cop, Bad Cop from Overworld Games. However, Slyn says, extremely random. Some equipment cards do nothing while others turn the game around completely. It has player elimination, but in this case, it's a good thing because if you get shot, you don't have to play the game anymore. Number 97 is probably the first true Euro on my list, and that is Bruges from Stefan Feld and Z-Man Games. I actually enjoy Stefan Feld's designs quite a bit, and Bruges is a perfect example of what I like about his games. There's a lot of variety. They have the infamous point salad mechanism where you can get points in a lot of different ways, but it's all done through some very cool, clever card play. I love when you can use one card to do multiple things, and that's ever present in this game. You have these townsfolk cards and a ton of different townsfolk to choose from, and you can either play them as a citizen, you can turn them into houses somehow, you can put the citizens into houses to get their special abilities, you can use them to make canals, there's this ever-present threat that you have to roll every round that may have negative effects against you that you have to try to mitigate while you're trying to do all these cool things in order to improve this town and to get the most points possible. Just a very cool, very beautiful looking game, my type of Euro game. That's Bruges from Stefan Feld. However, Can Do says, beautiful city, crappy game. Number 96 is Volt Robot Battle Arena from Nazaa Games. This is a programmed action game. You are like the controller of these robots in this little arena, and you're trying to bash the robots into each other in order to destroy them, but more importantly, get to the different goals that are on the board. If you can destroy the other players, great, you'll get points that way too. So you're programming your actions, and you never quite know how it's going to turn out because you can't account for the actions of the other players, but there's really no randomness on your part. What you decide to do is what you do, and you just kind of hope for the best. But there is strategy to be had there. You can play it safe, you can take some risks, and hope that it works out by the time that all of your opponents move around as well. I really recommend that you play with the different variants, although I think they're really not variants they should be played with, where you get different special powers, you get like buzzsaws and lasers. It's really, really cool. It's a cool game, cool miniatures, and I really enjoyed it a lot. That's Volt Robot Battle Arena from Nazaa Games, although Pint Sized Pete says, cough, Robo Rally, cough. My number 95 is Pixel Tactics from Level 99 Games. This is a really clever card game, two-player strategic card game, where you're playing down these cards representing troops down onto this grid, and where you place them matters because every unit has a different special ability depending on where they're placed. Whether you place them in the middle, the front, the rear guard, or if you make them your leader, they will all have different special abilities depending on where they go, which gives the game an incredible amount of variety, especially since there's like 3 sets of this out now with more to come. So you're never going to play the same game twice. It's really cool. I love that you can even discard the cards to get other special abilities aside from placing them down on the board. You can play them as spells. So really cool. I like the pixel artwork, even though, yeah, it's kind of getting overdone at this point. But it works really well since these are all the different characters from the other Level 99 games like BattleCon. So I like the game a lot. It's my kind of two-player game. That's Pixel Tactics from Level 99 Games. But Just a Dreamer says, I really wanted to like this game. It is unique, but the game is dull and tedious. It seems to last way too long and it gets boring. Some leader abilities are really difficult to play against. My number 94 is another new game. This one is called The Ravens of Thri Saharashri, or Thri Saharashri. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it correctly. From Manifest Destiny and Japan Brands. This is a very cool two-player cooperative asymmetrical game. The theme is awesome. There's this little girl who underwent great tragedy and her mind sort of snapped. She went into a coma and her mind is literally tearing apart, and there's this little boy who is in love with her who has these psychic powers and wants to use them in order to go into the girl's mind and fix all of that damage. But the girl has to help him by giving him different clues as to how to fragment all these different pieces of her brain back together. It's very, very hard. It's very difficult. The player playing the girl has to remain silent and can only give clues in certain ways, whereas the boy has to put together this puzzle, and it's very, very cool, very thematic, very puzzly and brain burning, and my kind of two-player cooperative game. And there's actually no bad reviews for this one yet because it's very new and it's not a lot of people have actually had a chance to play it yet, but give it a shot because I'm sure you'll enjoy it. That is The Ravens of Thri Saharashri from Manifest Destiny and Japan Brand. My number 94. Number 93 is Claustrophobia from Asmodee. This is a very cool two-player game that it's way more epic than a lot of the other two-player games I have out here. It's based on I believe it's the Hell Dorado RPG series. One player takes control of a priest who is leading all these convicts into this underground realm that's basically hell underneath Israel, trying to complete these different objectives. They're on basically a suicide mission. The other player is like this overlord controlling all these demons that constantly spawn and flood into the dungeon. So it's 1 versus 1 asymmetrical game. Very cool. The way that you use different dice and the dice that you roll and how you put them depends. It modifies your character's special abilities, and as you take damage, you'll have to lessen those abilities. Very cool. Lots of cool powers that each player has, and it's just a very tense back and forth. Really enjoy it. Really love the theme and the components as well. That's Claustrophobia from Asmodee. But Mitchell Cube, I believe he would want me to sing this, says, rolling, 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 die are rolling, strictly boring, 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 smiley face. My number 92 is Werewolf Inquisition from Bezier Games, and it is my favorite game to bear the werewolf moniker from any company. This is a much more methodical and strategic version of Werewolf, where you each get a different role, the same as you would in the normal werewolf. You're either going to, but in this case, you're either going to be a human inquisitor or a werewolf impersonating one of the inquisitors, and you're all at this town trying to root out the werewolves, although as a werewolf inquisitor, you're trying to make sure the werewolves take over that town. You have all the different special roles that usually you, the players, would take on in a normal game of werewolf, but now they're out in the town. You have to find a way to influence them in all of their different residences, and just trying to manipulate the board, moving cards around, trying to and then you have this voting where you're putting voting cubes on the cards, and whoever gets voted for is going to die at the end, but there's different ways that you can mitigate that and hide your presence as a werewolf. It's one of the few hidden role games where you may not care that the other players know that you're one of the bad guys, because you can still win the game and you can still manipulate the board in your favor. I really enjoy that aspect of it. It's a bit long for a hidden role game, but I really love what's going on here. That is Werewolf Inquisition from Bezier Games. Now, Demour Surf disagrees. He says, a game that Resistance fans should like, right? Wrong. And the last one for today, my number 91, is No Thanks from Z-Man Games. This is a very clever, very small card game that is all about not taking points, which is one of my favorite mechanisms of traditional card games. Like, I love the game Hearts. And it works really well here. Basically, you lay out a card of these numbers. I think they're from like 3 to 35, something in that realm. And you're trying not to take those cards, but on your turn, you either have to take a card or you have to put one of your little betting chips on it and say, no thanks. Now, if you do that, you'll be able to pass a card potentially on to someone else, but you only have a limited stock of those chips. You're going to have to take a card eventually. But that's where the twist comes in that first off, if you have a run of cards, you only count the lowest one. So you can aim and try to get those runs in order, since you have to take cards anyways, to try to mitigate that damage as much as possible. But also, those betting chips count for positive points at the, or I'm sorry, negative points. So they'll actually reduce your total score, which is a good thing in this game. So maybe if you know you need that card, but no one else wants to take it because it's way too many points, let it sit out there for a while. Let it collect some chips. I really like that dynamic. It's fast. It's not overly complicated, so you can teach this to anyone. Great gateway filler game. That is No Thanks. And Fruit Eating Bear says, no thanks. Aptly named. Well, that's it for today. Next time we're going to be counting down from 90 to 81, and I hope you come along for the ride. Take care.